Good morning, MegaWhale team, and welcome back to another video. Bitcoin has seen a continued correction to 109,000, exactly as we have been prepared for over the last few weeks. With this correction, we have of course also seen the total cryptocurrency market and altcoin market continue down to now retest major levels of weekly support. We have so much to be taking a look at today, going over key technical levels, structural levels, context from the macro and short term, and discussing some very important questions. Will Bitcoin continue lower? If so, where to and how will that look? Or will the buyers finally step back in and reverse this aggressive downtrend? We're going to be answering all of that in the video today. Before we get into it, make sure to smash that like button, hit that comment button, and subscribe to the channel. We post daily videos for Bitcoin focusing on the facts, the data, the technical, and the structural information. No hype, no BS, no emotion, just pure, raw TA. And if that is the kind of content you are interested in, you can also join us on Telegram. This is the first link down below. You'll get access to charts, updates, videos, educational posts, news events, and everything you need to stay in the loop for cryptocurrency with Bitcoin and all of the relevant economic news. Go ahead and check it out down below. Totally free for everyone. You can click the link to join up. Let's jump on in. So as we can see, guys, a very, very brutal week for cryptocurrency, for the total cryptocurrency market cap dropping around $300 billion in market price. The altcoin market cap dropping a significant amount as well, with Ethereum leading the way downwards around 14 to 15% down this week. And of course, Bitcoin as well correcting a pretty significant amount on the weekly candle of around 5% so far. Now, with this correction, we have seen numerous things happen on the short term and higher time frame of significance. We're going to be discussing a couple of these in today's video, such as the potential risk of the breakdown of the 34.34 on the RSI. We're going to be discussing what this means and historically how this indicator, the RSI, particularly the 34.34 on the RSI, has been used to warn for potential flash corrections, meaning we could still see the price come lower. We'll also be taking a look at the retest of the 50 EMA on the 3-day chart, suggesting potential mean reversion is completed, and we may start to see a little bit of a move back upwards from this potential point, meaning we may see some bullish relief at the moment over the next few days after what has been a significant pullback. We'll discuss that in today's video. And of course, we'll be taking a look at the weekly chart, discussing the context of the weekly price, whether or not we expect the price to go lower or whether or not we are going to see bounces. We'll be discussing everything. Now, in terms of the total cryptocurrency market cap and altcoin market cap, we'll be discussing both of those charts individually, going over again the macro, targets, expectations, and more. Let's start on the market data. Taking a look at liquidations over here, we can see liquidations have pushed up a fair amount. Now, overall, guys, this week has been very volatile. We can see already here, just in the last 24 hours, we are over $1 billion again in 24-hour liquidations, up 364%, with over 1 billion coming from long positions alone. Looking at the 24-hour breakdown, 450 million in liquidations coming from Ethereum, 300 million coming from Bitcoin, as Ethereum did aggressively drop downwards. We caught a fantastic short trade here for Ethereum in the VIP channel, again smashing all targets there. We can see volume is up 68% at 452 billion. So a lot of volume, a lot of liquidations in the market, a lot of volatility at the moment. Moving over to the DXY, the DXY is pushing up very slightly as potential rate cuts become, I guess, a little bit less likely as consecutive back-to-back interest rate cuts. We know already that the Federal Reserve was very cautious in dropping interest rates even this time around. They did it to try stimulate the job market, but they made it very clear that they are trying to find a very difficult balance between dropping rates to stimulate the job market, but not so much to bring inflation back up. So depending on how the upcoming inflation data develops is going to massively alter the potential for continued interest rate reductions. Now, my theory is that we see an interest rate drop, we see a few pauses, we see a drop, we see a few pauses, we see a drop, because that is going to be the best way to gradually boost the job market while keeping inflation relatively managed. So when we're looking at the upcoming economic news, we do have personal income and spending coming up. That is actually today in about 12 hours, and that is going to be a good leading sign of how inflation is developing, but not so much of a leading sign to how it is developing in retrospect to the prior interest rate cut. It does take some time. So paying attention to that. And of course, at the beginning of October, we have got the unemployment and NFP data, which has always been a volatile event for the market. So pay attention to that as well. Moving over to the S&P 500, I told you guys a few days ago at 6,750, the S&P 500 was looking like it was curving out. We were seeing this curvature happen on the markets over B. The RSI was massively overbought over here. We can see momentum was beginning to shift downwards, and we have now seen that weakening positive momentum shift occur, suggestive that sellers are either stepping in or buyers are just not showing enough demand to keep the prices elevated. And we have seen a short-term pullback coming into this 6,600 level. We are expecting a potential continuation into that region. Now, historically, the S&P 500 tops a few weeks after Bitcoin does. So assuming the August was a potential top point for Bitcoin, it'd be natural to expect the S&P 500 to see some sort of pullback around about this particular period of time. Now, we'll discuss what we mean in today's video about tops. I think people will need to start detaching the word top to that of the macro 4-year cycle top. I think the 4-year cycle will inevitably break at some point, and I think the word top should be used in the literal context that every single top prior to reversals are considered tops, and this was a top for Bitcoin. So we're discussing that in the video today. Let's go ahead, guys, and jump into all of that. Like we said, so much to take a look at. I literally didn't even know how to start today's video just because there is so much to talk about. So I guess before we get into it, make sure to go ahead and sign up to BitGet, BitUnix, and BingX. Those are the exchange links down below. You got a lifetime trading fee discount of 15% off all your trading fees. You'll support me making this content for you guys on a daily basis, and you'll trade on exchanges I use and I trust. Check out the ad, we'll play it, and we'll jump right back in. If you are looking for a new exchange or just want to support the channel, sign up to BitUnix with the link down below. You'll get a lifetime trading fee discount of 15%, which can build up to 45% based on your trading volume, as well as access to a bonus reward center, and of course, all of the exclusive campaigns we run on this exchange. You'll also get access to BitUnix being a non-KYC exchange, meaning you can sign up from anywhere in the globe without regulations. And most importantly, I only promote exchanges I trust and I use. As you can see, I trade on BitUnix very regularly, being the highest VIP level with over $500 million in trading volume for the last 30 days. And lastly, if you were interested in signing up to our other two exchanges, BingX or BitGet, you can also do that via the links down below. You as well will get the 15% trading fee discount and everything else that comes with it. Go ahead and sign up. Thank you for supporting. Let's jump back in. Okay, legends, let's get right back into it. So I really appreciate everyone who goes and signs up to those exchanges, particularly BitUnix, the one we use. We do have an exclusive campaign for you all at the moment, a $120,000 4-week campaign prize pool. Everyone who has signed up to BitUnix under my link will get access to that. If you're not signed up, go ahead and do it. If you are signed up and under my link, contact me on Telegram. We can sort that out. And of course, if you are looking to swap exchanges, you can contact me on Telegram to figure out how we can do that while transferring your VIP status over to make sure you get the maximum fee discounts as possible. So check it out. A nice bonus community giveaway for everyone. Let's jump into the content. So diving in, guys, let's start on the total market cap, altcoin market cap, and then jump into Bitcoin because there's so much to take a look at for Bitcoin. The total cryptocurrency market cap. We have discussed this relentlessly over the last few weeks, and we have seen a breakdown into support for the total cryptocurrency market cap. Now, the most important level we need to maintain above for the total cryptocurrency market cap is going to be this horizontal level marked out by this gray rectangular level of support. This is representative of the prior weekly range high, and failure to maintain above this level of support will mark this as deviation and likely result in a strong pullback into sell side liquidity. So we do run the risk of an aggressive correction if that level is lost. Now we are seeing a correction already, but a continuation in that correction. Now with this being said, this is still a major point of support that we have maintained now since July. Okay, we've got July, August, September. We're looking at 3 months of support at this $3.6 to $3.65 trillion level. So if we were going to see any sort of bounce, any sort of reversal, any point in the charts where bounces are theoretically likely, it is going to happen from here, because if we lose this support, we run the risk of steeper continued corrections. But not only if we lose this support, we'll see those corrections, it is what we will need to see from Bitcoin to result in this level of support being lost will already trigger major sell signals. So we're discussing that in today's video. So we have seen a pullback into a major support. This is now where we are looking for any signs that buyers are going to jump in, any signs of short-term bounces that may develop, and any signs that we will see some selling exhaustion. Because if we do not see that, if we drop below this level, it is highly likely we see continued corrections into that 3 trillion, into that 50 EMA as next potential target. So again, if we do see that, the altcoin market will aggressively drop and we will see Bitcoin continue lower. Now, when we're looking at from a technical perspective, we can see we had the negative momentum shift on the RSI a couple weeks ago around mid-August. We have still got negative momentum. We have got a downtrend on the RSI, uptrending price action over here on the short term, representing a very classic bearish divergence pattern. Again, bearish divergence signaling that we have an uptrend that has exhausted and the sellers are stepping in. Buyers have been exhausted, resulting in a breakdown of this daily uptrend we can see here, establishing the beginning of a brand new downtrend. So what we have seen here is the total cryptocurrency market cap, which is a reflection of the cryptocurrency market cap. If you want to look at whether or not the crypto market as a whole is in an uptrend or a downtrend, we do look at the total cryptocurrency market. And what we can see here is that the total market cap has entered a downtrend for the first time since breaking the downtrend back in April. So we've been in an uptrend since around about May onwards for the total market cap, and now we are in a new downtrend. The question is this downtrend going to continue, or will we find support here and develop a new range and continue upwards? At the moment, the probabilities are in favor of continuations down, but we may see some short-term mean reversion before that happens. So we'll discuss that again when we get to Bitcoin. Let's jump over to the altcoin market. So that is definitely something to pay attention to. The altcoin market, guys, is looking sketch. We've talked about this numerous times. We'll talk about it again. We told you guys when we were retesting this $1.16 trillion level, we did not have the positive momentum we needed to be confident that level was going to break. Anytime we are retesting horizontal liquidity levels, breaking out of trends, if we do not have momentum on our side, it decreases the potential for those breakouts to occur or maintain. It doesn't confirm they're not going to happen, it just decreases the probabilities. Remember, trading is not deterministic, it is probabilistic. If you are thinking in a deterministic manner, you are thinking about how trading works incorrectly. Probabilistic is how the market works. It moves and works based on probabilities. And what we use these indicators to do, we use these indicators to simply map out what is potential and then assign probability to those moves so we can correctly assign our risk, our portfolio, when we are deciding to trade the market. When we are looking at this currently on the daily chart, we had some very aggressive bearish divergences, not only on the daily moving up into resistance, but even on the short term on the 4 hourly. What we can see here on the daily is that we have dropped below the 50 EMA, which is a bad sign. for the total altcoin market. And if we do see this 50 EMA remain as resistance, we could see corrections back into around 940 billion as a potential target if we were to see the total cryptocurrency market cap continue downwards. So that is what we're watching. It is not looking fantastic. For any of these charts to start looking good again, we need to see Bitcoin lead the way again. We'll discuss that in a second. So let's jump over to the weekly chart for Bitcoin and then break it down to the short term. So the weekly chart for Bitcoin is looking bad. It has been looking bad for a while. And I want to just reiterate a point. The candles, the price is not the best reflection of strength. Okay, just because we have a green candle, it doesn't mean it's bullish. Just because it's a red candle, it doesn't mean it's bearish. I think people need to really understand that concept when it comes to trading, because it can get them trapped into entering positions late or entering positions incorrectly. We need to assign the metrics. We need to look at strength, we need to look at structure, we need to look at the trend. And that is exactly why I developed the SST rule. Strength, structure, trend, to go ahead and kind of take away from just looking at what the price of the asset is and start focusing on actually the movement of the asset and the metrics, the strength behind how the price is actually moving. It gives you a better gauge on the overall direction rather than just the price of the asset. The price is just an arbitrary number based on what the whole market values the asset at any particular time. It doesn't really tell us too much about where it is going to go other than where it is and where it has been. So when we're looking at the weekly chart, we can see we've had a negative momentum shift. This was back in July. We had the breakdown of the 62.09. When we're looking at the price action, we had a weekly range high and we've established a lower high on the weekly. So to bring it back to the initial point we made a few days ago, for us to be confident the weekly chart for Bitcoin has turned bullish, we need to see the weekly candle close now above this weekly low, which is going to be sitting, this weekly high or low, lower high, sorry, is sitting around 115,000. That is going to be an initial start. And number two, for momentum to flip positive, we need to see a weekly close of the 62.09, which will require at least a close around about 117.5. So until we see those weekly closes on Bitcoin, we are not confident that this trend is going to see a major reversal upwards. Now, that doesn't mean the bottom might not come in, because that will technically be lagging because it is on a weekly chart. But when it does activate, it will still be leading for what is likely to come on the weekly. So it's not going to predict the perfect reversal, but it is going to predict or suggest the point in which the weekly trend has actually flipped back bullish. But so remember, what happens in the short term does take some time to then develop into the higher time frame. So the higher time frame is always going to be slightly lagging. Now, when we're looking at something like the 62.09 on the RSI, the 62.09 has been a fantastic tool to suggest major weekly pivot points. Every time you close a weekly RSI below the 62.09 or above, we see usually directional continuations in those respective directions. We closed below a few weeks ago, and the asset is currently down quite a considerable amount, near about 7%. We are expecting corrections around 10% or greater upon that breakdown. And again, the 62.09 breakdown is valid while we remain below 117.5, which is the opening price of the candle of which resulted in the breakdown occurring. So in terms of the weekly chart, the weekly trend is still downward. It is still bearish. It is still looking for corrections into sell-side liquidity, 98 to 100,000 at the moment. That can change based on what happens in the short term. So we'll jump into the short term now. Let's start on the 3-day chart for Bitcoin. Now, this is the silver lining. This is the good news for Bitcoin, but there is some good news for Bitcoin. And the good news for Bitcoin is that we are coming into a potential dynamic support, which is the 50 EMA. Now, the 50 EMA has acted, at least over the last year or so, as a trigger point, perhaps, per se, for the price action to generally indicate the trend is going to continue in the direction of which it is broken. Now, we have seen back a few weeks ago the 50 EMA act as a pivot point back upwards, and now we are coming back down to retest it. So we do assume breaking below the 50 EMA on the 3-day chart, which is in 2 days from now, into a close, we could see this downtrend resume downwards. We can also see some bad stuff here if we're looking at the Gaussian channel on the 3-day. We are actually now potentially closing in the Gaussian channel for the first time in a while on the 3-day. Now, the last time we closed the 3-day below the Gaussian channel upper band, we saw a correction toward the midline, which takes us to around 105,000. But most importantly, it would drop us below the recently established low, which is the trigger for a correction to 98 to 100,000. So we have to contextualize that as well. So that is not a good sign, but we do have some good signs, which is we are retesting the 50, and we do potentially have some short-term support developing, which we'll discuss in a second. Moving over to the daily chart, let's just talk about the bad things first and then get into the good things. The negative thing here is that we run the risk of a breakdown to 34.34. Now, we discussed this numerous times over the last few months, last few weeks, should I say, as a potential risk factor, and most importantly, the trigger for the flash correction. Now, we have seen a pullback occur, but for Bitcoin to now continue lower, and that is right, we expected a correction to occur from this 17.5 to 18 level. We have pulled back perfectly. A lot of people are getting bearish now as Bitcoin potentially comes into support. That is normal, okay? We do need to understand that the downtrend is still in play, but for us to see the next leg down, right? If we think about a market, right? We have these downward moves, we have these consolidations, maybe some mean reversion, then downwards again. For us to see this next leg down, we're kind of over here in this drop. Are we going to see a reversal? Are we just going to see sideways chop? Or are we just going to see downward price action? Is not the point. The point is to see that next leg down, we need to see triggers occur. We need to see liquidity levels broken. We need to see momentum triggers or shifts occur. And the big one for this next leg down is going to be the 34.34. Losing the 34.34 is what I need to see to be confident that we are going to see the next leg down into 98 to 100,000, because again, historically, the loss of the 34.34 has resulted in flash corrections for Bitcoin. But not only has it resulted in flash corrections of Bitcoin, I want you to go back and look at the 34.3 from the daily chart. Every single time we drop below, we see flash corrections, but more times than not, upon the breakdown of the 34.34, it also marks potential bottoms. It also marks points where the price action then begins to reverse upwards. So that is a very important piece of information, because if we do see that next leg down, the 34.34 breakdown, we will likely see a flash correction, but it would also tell us that this could be a bottom before we bounce back upwards. So that is something to pay attention to. Let's now jump into the immediate price action, discuss exactly what is happening, and then we'll wrap up the video starting on the 4-hourly chart. So, very important levels to pay attention to. I'm just going to go ahead and eradicate everything in this chart really quickly. All the key levels, it's going to take everything off. Looking at it from a blank perspective, if we draw in our horizontal levels of significance, we have got the most important level of support, which is 107,000. We've got our most important level of resistance, which is going to be marked out by this level of the resistance right over here. And then we have got our medium points of resistance, which is basically just our sell side liquidity, our lower highs. When we're looking at the price action over here, this is what we are watching very closely. A loss of this level is the trigger for an extended correction downwards. Very simply, what we'd be looking at is, again, the measured moves of depth from the lows to the highs applied down to the potential breakdown point. That takes us well into that 98 to $100,000 target, again, validating that level. So perfect. If we see the loss of that low, we expect corrections. For us to be confident in rallies back into 118, 117.5, we need to see a breakout of 114. 114 is the trigger for a continuation back into this level. Anything between this low and this level over here is likely going to be potential mean reversion, chop, and volatility. So, as we see the correction into support, we should be looking to take profits on some potential shorts, looking to re-enter shorts when this level breaks, or watching for any signs of reversals to develop on the short term back upwards. That is how I'm personally playing this potential correction. Now, Looking at the price action, we can also use things like the RSI as leading signs of reversals, as well as the current slope in the trend. So the trend is very evidently downward, and it is assumed to happen. It is assumed that the trend will continue until it reaches levels of liquidity, and therefore, even if we see bounces here, that trend could very well develop like that into that point of support. So it is very important to understand that this over here is a clear downtrend. Any bounces are likely just to be short-term mean reversions, potentially back into the break of structure. If I were to guess what is going to happen, I would probably say we may see some sort of reversal into the break of structure, 111,000, and then we follow that trend back in and potentially breaking that support, with the loss of the 34.34 being the trigger for a correction into high time levels of liquidity. That is today's analysis, guys. Again, there is so much to take a look at. I hope that made sense. There's just so much to talk about. So much has happened for Bitcoin. So many things are lining up to happen. It's a really, really exciting time for the market. So thank you for tuning in. Thanks for joining this journey with me. And I'll catch you guys in the next video on Sunday. Have a fantastic rest of your day, a great weekend. I look forward to seeing you then. Bye.